Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mobility Matters. I'm your host, Javier Betancourt, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT. I know that's a mouthful. I have two amazing guests today, and hope you enjoy the show. We have a lot of things to discuss. We're going to first welcome our guest, Commissioner Eileen Higgins
Good
with
morning.
District 5. Good morning. And the Commissioner's appointment to the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, Trust Member Mary Street. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Of course.
I know you all come from East. Hopefully the commute out West wasn't too bad. You're going against traffic, right? So then
true.
again, these days, the commuter pattern is all over the place, right? So let's learn a little bit about you all first, and then we could talk transportation. So Mary, we'll start with you. So tell us a little bit about your background and what is it about transportation that you're passionate about that brought you to the CITT?
Well, okay. I moved to Miami in 2014, and at the time I lived downtown near the Overtown Metro stop, and I had no car until the end of 2017 when my job required that I get a car. But I didn't always live downtown. I moved to an area called Silver Bluff. It's between US 1 and Coral Way. Maybe it's where I live. It's a mile between the Coconut Grove Metro Rail stop and the Vizcaya Metro Rail stop. So I had to really rely on walking and biking and the trolleys and the buses to get even to the metro, because that first last mile really was an issue. But before that, I lived in DC, and before that I lived in Vienna, Austria, and both of those places have really wonderful transit systems. And it had not even occurred to me until I got to Miami, because it was sort of like I was a fish in water in those other cities. You don't really pay attention to the water; it's just there. And then when it was missing, it was a big problem. And so I started paying more attention to why is Miami like this? It's a world-class city. Why doesn't it have a world-class transit system? And I started following Commissioner Higgins. Of course, she was my commissioner, and she was the head of the subcommittee. And I watched actually a public meeting. You were giving a presentation to the CITT, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And then I did more research and applied, and here I am. This is years ago at this point, but it was more just living in cities and caring about mobility and hating driving, and and then ending up in Miami, where it is a very car-centric, unfortunately, area. So this is not my job. I'm an attorney. I do medical malpractice defense and civil appeals, but I do care about this as a side issue, and I feel like I was very lucky that A, the CITT existed, and B, I could sort of, instead of just complain, try to do something.
Right. And most of our members say the same thing, right? That they were tired of just complaining about an issue. They wanted to be part of the solution. That's great.
Yeah.
And by the way, we have 4 vacancies currently on the trust. So if people are interested in being a part of the solution, you can certainly apply to be a member of the trust. Those vacancies are in districts 9, let me check my notes, 9, 10, 11, and 13. Our application is on our website at miamidade.gov/CITT. So apply to be a member and join Mary and all the good fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Commissioner, tell us about yourself. What is your professional background? You have a fascinating and varied background across multiple disciplines, subject areas, countries. So tell us about that, and then how did that lead to running for office?
Well, I grew up in a family of engineers, and so when my father would coach me on career possibilities, I could become an engineer or a physicist. And I just thought, well, I'm pretty sure if I become a physicist, I won't have any friends. I hope there are no physicists out there listening, but became an engineer and started out working in manufacturing, which is a great place, believe it or not, to start your career. I mean, it's not glamorous. You're in a hard hat and, blue jumpsuit and boots, but you learn to work as a team. Right? These are and you're generally in somewhat dangerous situations where safety has to be a priority. Working together has to be a priority, because if something goes wrong, someone could get injured. But over time, I was lucky enough to get promoted, move around, and eventually ran some pretty large divisions of multinational companies, and took me to work in Europe, in Africa, and Latin America, and eventually did a lot of work in the developing world. And ended up volunteering a lot and thought, I wonder if I could be more helpful to folks by working more permanently internationally, and pivoted and became the director of the Peace Corps in Belize, and then continued my federal service with State Department and the Foreign Service, did a lot of anti-drug and anti-cartel work, and finally got tired of moving around. And I moved back to Miami. I'd been lucky enough to live here before, and kind of just settled down, grew roots, and kind of like Mary, at this point in time, I've lived in Mexico City and New York City and Washington, D.C., and just really didn't have to drive.
Yeah.
And you come here and you're thinking, well, holy moly, this is a fabulous place, yet all we talk about is traffic, and that is boring, okay? And we were not making the kind of progress that I thought needed to be made, and I had a 10-year gap from when I had lived in Miami and moved back, and zero progress had been made on what I thought were important things: affordable housing, transportation, and quite frankly, sea level rise, and protecting us from that. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a whirl. I'll run for office. We'll see. and then the problem is people voted for me now.
Now 5 years later.
5 years later, and then they voted again. I remember the night before my first election, one of the reporters asked me, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "Winning." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I really laid out these problems that I think our community needs to address and can address. And winning means I'm responsible for looking for solutions to them." You go from the complaining about it, as Mary just said, why she decided to join the CITT, to being responsible for being part of the solution, not just shouting about it from the outside. And it's exciting, and it's great to be able to really focus on the things that make our community better.
And I have to say, working with you and observing all of your efforts from my position with the CITT, there is no greater champion, certainly for transportation, transit, affordable housing, as you mentioned, than you. And not only are you a champion for it, but you're uniquely positioned to move those items forward, right? So I mentioned not only are you a county commissioner, but you're now chair of the Transportation, Mobility, and Planning Committee.
Yes. For
the commission. You're also on the TPO. So, I mean, I call you the transportation whisperer, right?
Yeah.
I know you have another nickname out there, La Gringa, but I like transportation whisperer because you really are kind of at that point where you are a key person in moving these projects forward. And I know you've taken that on as your responsibility and a key challenge, right?
Fun fact, I know that I'm only one vote, but years and years ago, before your first election, you were speaking, you did this chat kind of like this at Gramps. I don't know if you even remember this.
Oh, I do remember.
And that's where I learned of your existence.
Yeah.
I was like, that person is identifying the problems that I agree are problems. Like, I'm going to vote for this person. But yeah, that's sort of when it started too. And it was a little bit of, I mean, I couldn't drop my law career and run for public office, but I appreciated that people like you existed and that you were doing that. And so there's that. You convinced me.
And it's meaningful work. Like if you run for office and you put the time in, you can accomplish things.
Yes.
And they don't get accomplished overnight.
It's not easy.
It's not easy,
a lot of moving parts.
It's meaningful work.
Absolutely. So let's start at the micro level, and then we'll go a little more macro. We'll start with District 5, which is, of course, the county commission district that you both represent, you on the CITT, you at the BCC, and at the TPO. So tell us a little bit about District 5. What are the cities that are within the district? What are some of the transportation, mobility challenges? We could even jump into land use and development if you like, because that's the other side of the equation, right?
Well, District 5 is, for the most part, about half the city of Miami Beach, and let's say 40% of the city of Miami. So all of South Beach, and then the actual beach is going up to 55th Street. Then you come across the Causeway, downtown Brickell, keep going west, Little Havana, Shenandoah, the roads, and Mary's neighborhood of Silver Bluff. So it's very diverse. I represent Fisher Island, the richest zip code in the United States, not just in our little community. And then a household of 4 in East Little Havana makes about $22,000 a year. So the needs are extremely different. And I know you really care about transportation, so does Mary. The transportation needs and the reasons for that are very different. My district, for the most part, we have suburban areas, but relative to other districts is quite dense. I have a lot of folks, particularly Miami Beach, downtown, and Brickell, that are transit riders or transit users by choice, right? That is a lifestyle choice. They don't want to own a car. They really believe it's bad for the environment. They want to participate in a live, work, play, learn environment that doesn't involve a car. But then when I go out to Little Havana, those folks are transit users, and it's not because they want to be. It's because they can't afford a car, they can't afford the insurance, and they're working places where they can't afford to park. Like they may have a service sector job in Miami Beach where it's $40 a day to park. That's more than they make in 5 hours of work. So it's impossible. So we have all kinds of folks that need to get around in the heartbeat of our economic core. I mean, this is the core, and for all sorts of reasons. We also have a ton of traffic because, quite frankly, lots of people come to this district to work.
Yeah.
And so
visit, right?
And
So
visit.
a
A lot of visitors, yeah.
Anything you'd like to add about the district?
Only that it is, like I said, or like the commissioner said, the fact that it has this mix of the most dense, the most options for transit, which also means the most opportunities. But then you just go a couple miles out where I am, and while it is dense objectively, like the lots are small and close together, they're still little single family homes, and it's kind of bizarre. You see, Brickell in the not very distant distance, but it's still hard to get there without a car, and that's upsetting. It shouldn't be like that. I tried to get to my office. This was pre-COVID. I tried to get to my office at 47th and Biscayne from my house without using a car, and I had to take walk, trolley, Metro Rail, Metro Mover, and then the bus, and then walk a couple blocks because my office is northeast of the design district across from Biscayne from Morningside. So there's no direct way to get there on transit. And then if you take a car, even though it's 5 or 6 miles, you still have to get on 95, which is asinine.
Who wants to do that?
Right.
Yeah.
So you're truly multimodal.
I did it once, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. But in any event, my point is that it shouldn't be like that. It's the district is dense enough, and there are enough opportunities that hopefully one day we can connect it better without having to use a car.
Mary's like me; she has a choice.
Right.
If the commute is really, really rough, I can get in my car and do it. But we are not a community that is incredibly rich. When I tell people I'm from Miami, they always think palm trees and fabulousness and vacation. But, you can throw the numbers, 13 to 15% of our population live in poverty. And that doesn't sound like a lot, except that's 400,000 people.
Yeah.
And those folks on these multimodal, if they get a job and it's complicated to get there, it takes them 2 hours to get there in public transportation, they have no choice.
Yeah.
And so the obligation on us to find ways of making our transit system better for them, whether it's the bus, the trolley, or adding more trains, it's real, because transportation, it's not a vehicle, right? It's not a bus, it's not a train. None of that matters, right? Transportation people talk about that, but that is not what it is to a human being. It is how they are connected to opportunity, whether that's a job, school, a doctor's appointment, or fun.
Right.
And so that obligation on a government to try to get that right, if you're saving a person 15 minutes each way over the course of 10 years, that's like a whole life of time with kids and family and for yourself.
Absolutely. So one of the things we didn't touch on, but I think most of the viewers at this point know that 20% of the half-penny funds go to the cities, and the cities use those funds for a variety of transportation projects. But most at this point are using it also for transit, running their own circulator, trolley, shuttle services, and now increasingly on-demand service through things like Freebie and GoConnect. So what is the experience in the city of Miami and the city of Miami Beach with respect to the municipal transit services? I mean, do you think they're being effective? Is there room for improvement? How does it connect to the county system?
know. You're a trolley user.
Yeah,
We'll
you use
start
it
with
all the
Mary,
time.
and then I'll.
Well, okay, yeah. So when we moved out of when I was downtown, I just took the Metro Mover to work or walk to Brickell. And then when we moved to Silver Bluff, I took either the bus or the trolley, or I rode the M Path, which will be the underline. But for me, the Coral Way route seems to be, I mean, it does overlap a lot with the county bus route. The trolley itself is not super reliable. It'll, you think it's going to come at a certain time, and if you miss it, you're going to sit there for 40 minutes, even though it's supposed to be every 15. It's really hard for people in wheelchairs, or because it has the steps, and the lift in the back is not very great. I've been on the trolley, and the poor bus driver pulls over at a Starbucks and leaves the trolley in the bus lane and goes and gets food, because I don't know what their brake situation is like otherwise. Maybe goes to the bathroom. But in any event, I wouldn't say that it's the most reliable transit option. It is nice that it's free. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, both in terms of the operation of them, though, and where they go. Because, like I said, you're just overlapping the county bus. That doesn't really do much for people. But if it were used more as like a true circulator, getting people to a bus stop or a metro stop, that might be a better use. That's just my opinion. Kind of using the trolleys as a supplement to, or feeder into the bigger system might be better than just sort of haphazard overlapping, as it seems to.
And actually, there was an item before the county commission recently that is directing the administration to look at how we can create greater efficiencies, right, between the county and the municipal services.
So it's very interesting. City of Miami Beach also has a trolley system, which I think is a bit more efficient than the city of Miami. They also have it a little bit easier because their city's very up and down grid system, and City of Miami goes all kinds of different directions. The Better Bus Project is a county project. I do believe some of the municipalities, particularly those that have a high number of trolley routes, like the City of Miami, should really look at an approach to rationalize this. And Better Bus, we have not used a data-based approach to look at our bus routes in 40 years, right? Whole parts of the county exist today that didn't exist when we rolled out this network. And I'm not telling you we didn't add bus stops and bus services, but it just got added. It never got thoughtfully added. And we spent about 2.5 years, community meetings at bus stops, surveying riders, and using real data to say, how can we, for basically the same amount of money we're spending on our bus system now, look at creating more frequency and better connections, right? Because it doesn't make any difference if the 11 runs every 5 minutes. If when I get to 27th Avenue, if I need to go north, that bus doesn't come for another 45 minutes. Doesn't help me. So I need both frequency in one direction, and I need shorter connection times. And we were hoping to roll out the Better Bus Network last year. We have had a bus driver shortage, and that is slowly but surely getting a lot better. And we are rolling the full network out November 13th. And that is a serious rationalization of where things go. And it's going to involve changes. So folks, get ready to pay attention if you're a bus rider. But we are going to be bringing what we're calling frequent bus service. And we define frequency as you can get on the bus in the middle of the day, right? It's not just you can take it from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. But if you need to take the bus at noon, or your shift starts at 2 in the afternoon, you have frequent bus service. This new network brings frequent bus service to 350,000 residents. It's a serious improvement in service. Some of the municipalities have done a fantastic job at working with the county to say, oh, you're going to change your bus route here. That means we can alter our trolley route to take care of this, this, and this. And so there's lots of opportunities for the cities to look at their trolley routes to make them work for people. They shouldn't just drive in circles. They should go from where people live to where they need to go. I'll give you an example of one that I can't figure out how it would work for me. The little Havana one, it goes out on Flagler and then back on Cayocho, which are like, I don't know, a mile and a half
very
apart.
far, yes.
They're really far apart, even for a hardy person like me who doesn't mind walking. So maybe I can use it out, but then
Can't get back.
I can't get back. I have to switch to a county bus on first, which is pretty, the
Or
county.
you have to sit on it for a very
Or
long
you- or
time
you
to go
go
all the way
around.
back
So-
around.
Which is impractical.
So there's really smart ways. Matter of fact, Commissioner Sabina Kovo, it was pretty much day 2 after she got elected. She called me and she goes, "Is there anything I can do to make the trolleys in my district more efficient?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I know she's already working on that in her
Yeah,
district.
the Coconut Grove run goes in
Yes, the
weird
Coconut
loops. I
Grove
don't
one.
understand.
There's all kinds of ways to make that, and there's new technology that exists that didn't exist when they launched
Right.
the trolleys. The Go Connect, the county have pilot programs with Go Connect. It's been fabulous. We have tons of ridership.
You want to explain what Go Connect is?
Okay, Go Connect is cool. Download the app. We're expanding service, so we've had a couple of test areas. Cutler Bay is an excellent example. You have an app. It's not going to take you, from here to Fort Lauderdale, but it will take you to your closest Metro Rail stop. It might take you to a bus stop, and it'll take you to key places, for example, like a grocery store. And if you are riding the transit system, it's at no incremental cost. Right? It's the same thing as if you were getting on the bus. So it's a great system. We've been seeing increased ridership every month. We just approved an item that will add, don't quote me on this, although I guess I'm on TV, I should remember, but at least 10 to 12 new parts of the county in the coming year. So it's a very exciting mobility piece that is a little more flexible and, quite frankly, can cost less than running a fixed route. There is definitely a role for trolleys, absolutely, positively. But this new technology means all cities can really look at how do we blend these approaches together to make sure we're getting people where they need to go.
Yeah, you need different services for different circumstances, right? And every place is unique. So that reminded me, because that's essentially first last mile service,
Yeah.
right? Connecting people to either transit or their destination. Another way to do that is through bicycle, micromobility, pedestrian facilities, right? So I know your district has a lot of that going on. So let's change gears and talk about that for a second. What are some of the bike ped, we'll throw micromobility in there as well. What are some of the projects that are underway or kind of on the horizon with respect to that type of transportation?
No, the underline's in my
So
backyard.
the underline, right? Great example.
Yeah, which is, upgrading significantly the MPAP. And I know that Commissioner Higgins, you had done downtown bike lanes, because those were definitely not there when I lived there.
No,
right? Just-
there's first of all, we need, if we improve transit, every transit trip starts in a pair of sneakers, right? Okay, so
Right.
don't be confused. We have got to be able to find a way to make it easier for folks to get to those transit stations or transit hubs in a way that feels comfortable. And there's all kinds of ways, making our sidewalks better, plant more trees so we're not so bloody hot while we're doing it.
yeah.
We're all feeling
If-
that these
if
days.
we're
yeah.
this year, it's a statement. Being able to cycle safely, the underline is obviously the county's signature project. Ludlam Trail, also, we've been receiving lots of good funding, and that will be another. We've gotten great funding now from both the state and the federal government to continue where the underline will end, to continue all the way to Florida City along the South Dade BRT route. So we are really actively enhancing. Another project I'm really proud of is on the, it's not built, you've got to get it in the 5-year work plan. For you listeners, you may not know that, but that's a nerdy thing. If you talk about a project and it doesn't get an FDOT's 5-year work plan,
Doesn't
it's
exist.
not real.
Oh.
It's just an idea. It's not a project. But I really want to be able to connect Miami and Miami Beach safely for cyclists.
Yes.
And we have on the MacArthur, which would be the fastest, most appropriate way to go, there's no protection for cyclists. And there had been a project that would have, done the usual thing we do here, just put paint on the road. Well, I'm
Right.
sorry, paint for a cyclist next to a 55-mile-an-hour car.
Inviting disaster.
Yeah, that is just, well, I don't need to, you get it.
Yeah.
It's a way to kill people, not a way to get cyclists across safely. So I had been advocating every year, and we have it in the 5-year work plan, that FDOT is going to put a fully protected cycling lane
That's
on the MacArthur. And so that's coming. I know it's not coming fast enough, people, but once you're in the 5-year work plan, it's an actual project. So it's very, It's very, very exciting. And then another very boring behind the scenes thing is our county has had what's called a road impact fee for years. And so with new construction, there's always impacts on roads. Whether you're building a single family housing development out in West Kendall or you're building a high rise in Brickell, there are impacts. And we've only been able to spend that money on roads. Well, if you're Mary and you want to be able to cycle more safely or walk more safely to her Metro Rail station, I can't spend any of that funding on that. And so we should, on final passage at our first meeting in September, move from a road impact fee to a mobility fee. And that all depends on where you are. So obviously, if you're downtown in Brickell, those impacts could be used to improve transit, could be used for cycling improvements, pedestrian improvements, and of course roads. But then further west or further south, it might all be used for roads. So essentially, you're able to use the money appropriately for the neighborhood.
That's great.
You're in.
Provides that flexibility.
So that is going to provide a funding source that we've never had before in the neighborhood. So September 1st, not September 1st, whatever the 1st. Don't quote me on this either. It's the first meeting in September. I think it's actually the 6th now that I think about it. First meeting in September.
Yeah, I remember when I was at the DDA, we fought all the time for that because really all the impact fees that were being generated out east were really going out west because you couldn't spend it.
You couldn't spend it
in the east
Yeah.
because we're not expanding roadways in the urban core,
Yeah.
right? There's no room to do so.
Yeah.
And I should have noted, by the way, that you're also on the board of directors of the Miami DDA, the Downtown Development Authority.
Yes,
So,
I am.
and that's probably how she got involved in the downtown
Yeah.
micromobility network, right? So
Yeah.
all these pieces kind of come together and form this larger picture. All right, so we've talked about buses and trolleys and bike ped. Now let's talk about the fun stuff, right? The stuff people are really excited about, which is the SMART plan, the strategic Miami area rapid transit plan, which is all about rapid transit, right? These are kind of the longer corridors really connecting the entirety of the county. And certainly as chair of the TNPC and also a member of the TPO, you're right in the middle of that. So let's start with you. Tell us about the SMART plan. And if we want to go corridor by corridor and give a quick update, we can do that. And then Mary, if you want to chime in specifically on those that impact District 5 and get into more detail on them. Sure. Let's do that.
Well, the SMART anybody listening to your show probably is a transit geek and knows what the SMART plan is. But the SMART plan was really the county saying we need to develop a comprehensive look at putting together 6 corridors that could begin to move people more quickly from point A to point B, whether that's through BRT or Metro Mover extension or Metro Rail extension or commuter rail extension. There's all kinds of options for moving people faster. And I'm really proud, came together and said, whatever project is ready first is the one we're going to advance and fund, because we had spent a lot of time fighting. If it's not my corridor, it's nobody's corridor. And guess what happened? Nobody's corridor got built because and that is no longer really the case at the TPO and the commission. There's a real understanding that every car we get off the road helps every one of us. Doesn't matter, where it is. So the South Day corridor is under construction. Really important corridor. Florida City is our furthest south community. It is also very poor. 40% of the folks in Florida City live in poverty. And there's a really simple explanation for that. They are 40 miles from our job centers, right? So they are literally physically locked away from the high-paying jobs that tend to exist in this county. And if you get on our bus, and it's in a dedicated lane, if you get on our public transportation, you take the bus to the train to come downtown, it takes about 2 hours each way. And so that's 4 hours a day if you wanted to leave Florida City to come to perhaps where you might be able to get a high-paying job. And when we fully implement the South Dade bus rapid transit system, you'll be taking about 40 minutes to 45 minutes each way off of Florida City residents' commute. So that's a dramatic improvement in quality of life. You are literally bringing them closer to economic opportunity. So that should open. We're about, I think, a year-ish away from opening that.
And it's not just faster, by the way, much better experience, right?
Oh my gosh, it's
If
a
you
much
haven't
better
been down
experience.
south, you'll see the stations
Stations
coming
are
up.
gorgeous.
Air-conditioned vestibules, platform,
Yeah.
loading,
Level
et
boarding.
cetera.
You don't have to go up any stairs. We were just complaining about the stairs. You got your baby carriage with you. You just
The baby
wheel the
carriage is a
baby
problem,
on.
yeah.
You wheel the baby. It's great.
So the idea is it'll feel like you're boarding a metro rail.
Absolutely.
It just happens to be on rubber tires.
Listen, I lived in Mexico City and I rode bus rapid transit all the time. It's an above ground subway.
Right.
The difference is they're built while we're still alive versus, because they are substantially less expensive per mile. So it's going to be a great experience. On opening day, I'm going to be riding it all the way to Homestead, where I'll be catching the Homestead trolley to the Everglades,
Oh,
where
great.
I'll be going hiking if anyone
nice.
wants to.
We'll be joining you
That's
for
my
sure.
opening day plan for.
Catch a couple of pythons. Probably.
Let's see. Oh yeah, we could go python hunting. I hadn't thought about that. So that's cool. And then we have the other ones that everybody's talking about, the North Corridor. I think that's the corridor, that's nearest and dearest to people's heart, all the way up to the county line on 27th Avenue. That we're hoping to extend Metro Rail. Done a lot of engineering work on that with our friends at FDOT. A project that the Biden administration is very interested in because it reconnects a community that was destroyed by infrastructure. As we know, I-95 basically demolished Overtown, ruined people's lives, and quite frankly, moved many of them further north to Opelika, Liberty City, Miami Gardens. And guess what? They used to live in Overtown where they could walk to a good job, and now they're an hour and a half away from, or an hour and 15 minutes away. So Joe Biden and his administration is very committed to funding infrastructure projects that reconnect communities that were destroyed by highway projects. And this project qualifies for what the Department of Transportation is calling their reconnecting communities. And so we have a grant application going in for that. So we're very hopeful as we progress with this project that will get federal funds. The Northeast Corridor, everybody knows we've already got train tracks going up pretty much at Biscayne Boulevard. Why don't we have commuter rail on that? We're very close on that. We've opened our Aventura station, which is the first station. There'll be another 5 stations in between. We've already received over $103 million from the state for that project. We're expecting to get our environmental clearance from the feds this fall, which puts us in line for a federal allocation of funds next summer. So that's exciting, and that'll, again, think about it. Before we opened the Brightline station to Aventura, you drove rush hour Aventura downtown. It was an hour plus. Now it's 16 minutes, right? So, and you don't have to pay for parking. This would be adding essentially the equivalent of Tri-Rail service. So it would, wouldn't be the Brightline service, but we'd have little local service. But again, from Aventura downtown, it won't be an express 17 minutes, but you'll probably be there 25.
Yeah.
And you'll have a choice.
And you'll have a choice.
You're in a rush, take the Bright Line.
Yeah.
For your everyday commute.
Yeah.
If you don't want to pay that Bright Line price every day, you'll have the other commuter.
And then I think it's been in the news quite a lot, looking at expanding the Metro Mover, extending the Metro Mover over to Miami Beach to take, right now we have our hotel workers, our restaurant workers, that commute on the bus one way can be an hour and 15 minutes if they're lucky in the evenings. And this will, essentially from Government Center over to the beach would be less than 15 minutes direct.
And that's what people used to call Bay Link. Now it's Beach Quarter / Bay Link.
That link is really the Bay Link part.
That's Bay Link.
Right,
Okay.
because you're really talking about Bay, linking across
causeway.
the bay. And that we've done a lot of engineering work on that. We're in great discussions with the Florida Department of Transportation. They've asked some technical questions, good questions, not crazy questions. And so we're in the midst of answering them. But so this is, there's some real progress on some of our corridors, and then quite frankly, some are not advancing as fast as we'd like. Kendall, East West, and some of that is political will. And I will tell you, this new commission, they are transit friendly.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if you've seen.
It's a sea change. For sure. Absolutely.
It's just an absolute.
And they have a
sea
sense
change.
of urgency.
Yeah. So
That's great.
it used to be when you talked about the East-West corridor, nobody said anything pretty much except for me and back in the day, now Mayor Bovo, because he's also a transportation geek. and
Now chair of the TPO.
and now he's the chair of the
That's great.
TPO. And Kendall Quarter got no love,
Yeah.
and Flagler Quarter got no love. And Flagler Quarter is now back up and running. We're doing the final studies on that. And we still need real solutions that work on East, West, and Kendall. I don't think we have the technical solutions there, but I can tell you the sea change on the commission means we have people that want to work on that. So to our residents, this is a very hope-filled time for transit. I never thought I would be on the commission when we would possibly have 3 corridors under construction by the time I'm out: Northeast, North, and Baylink, and maybe at least one of them open. And so we have managed to compress this time horizon. I know probably a year or 2 from now we'll have to think about how are we funding the O&M and how's that happening.
Sure.
That's fine. That's a real discussion, but we're delivering real service. We always talked about transit. We never did it.
Yeah.
And now that we're doing it, it's a different discussion. So it's cool. I think it's cool what's going on.
And before we go back out to the community and talk about additional funding sources, we need to show them that we've done something.
We
right?
have to have our ducks in a row.
Absolutely. And we're doing that. So any other thoughts on the SMART plan or on rapid transit from your perspective, either as a CITT member or as a resident?
It was just when you were talking about Brightline and the Aventura station, it brought me back when we lived downtown. We happened to have a south-facing apartment, and we watched the Brightline station get built.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, why? And we used to ride the Tri-Rail all the way up to Mangonia Park to visit family members that are more north. So the Tri-Rail's coming downtown. That's where this is going. By the way, my brain is like, I'm still sleep deprived. She's 11 months old, but my baby is like
And but
melted
speaking
my
of your
brain.
baby, you have some breaking news. You want to
Breaking
share it with
news.
Oh
the
yeah,
world?
breaking news. Mobility really does matter. She took her first steps yesterday.
That's
So
great.
yes.
A huge milestone.
Yes, and she's getting too big for me to strap on me, which
you're
I
in
have been
trouble.
doing. I've been taking her on the metro, and the trolley steps don't matter when she's strapped on me. But now that she's getting so big, I'm gonna have to she's gonna have to step up herself, or I'm gonna have to take the bus only to wheel her on.
She loves to attend our CITT meetings. by the way.
Yes, I took her when she was very.
Yeah, she's had a lot of community meetings too.
She's great.
She's already got like an activist point
Yes,
of view.
Future mayor.
1 month old, she
Future
was on
mayor.
me.
Yeah.
We'll see. Well, she'll definitely run if we don't get this stuff done, because
Yeah.
she's going to be like, what the heck? We were talking
Someone's
about this
gotta
when I was
continue,
11
right?
months old. We got to finish this.
No, it's wonderful. And she's such a great baby, by the way. And I'm not just saying that because you're
She's
my
an
members.
honorary
She's
CITT
fantastic.
member.
There you go.
She is. I call her
There's
the
a-
Gerber baby. She's so beautiful.
There's
She should
enough
be on
vacancies.
this
I almost brought her today, but my husband, I
Next
was like,
time.
well, I don't know. She might be too distracting.
We would have gotten more viewers. I mean, people would
Maybe.
So something that I know is near and dear to your heart as well is the other side of the coin to transportation, which is land use, right? And while we have many transportation challenges in Miami-Dade County, the true crisis right now is affordable, attainable workforce, whatever you want to call it, housing. And those two things kind of play off each other, right? Transit allows people to afford more housing if they don't have to purchase a car. You want to build housing along transit to help increase ridership. So you want to talk about some of the things that you're engaged in on the land use side, either the DDA or as commissioner, and how that ties into mobility.
Yeah. I personally think transportation and housing are one problem, right? Because they are the top 2 expenses for American households. That's it, 1 and 2. So if you help with housing, you're making people's lives better. If you're helping with transportation, you're making people's lives better. If you're doing both, you're dramatically changing their lives. The cost of housing in our county is literally out of control, right? It does not even matter whether you're low income, medium income, a recent college grad, or a young professional or working family or somebody retiring. Housing is just shot out of control. And the only solution, right, is it's a supply and demand. We absolutely have to make sure we're building more units. And the smartest way to do that, to maintain the balance of our neighborhoods, right? We do want some single family neighborhoods that maintain that characteristics, is to do it near transit. And we really waited too long to do that. If you look at the metro rail stations, the idea that we're only now building housing near 27th Avenue,
Yeah.
and we just opened a couple buildings at Douglas Road. We really, as a county, were, in my opinion, behind the 8 ball on adding the number of housing units we needed near
It's
transit.
taken 40 years.
It's taken 40 years, but for better or worse, all you can do is learn from your mistakes and fix
Right,
them. And I can tell you, we have fixed them. We really have housing, and affordability is required in many of these spots near transit stations. So I'll give you an example near the Brickell station. I had a piece of property when I first got there. There was like 24 dilapidated low-income homes on a huge piece of property, almost 2.5 acres right across the street from the Brickell train station. Well, we demolished all of those, obviously found those folks a spot to live, and now we're doing two things. We're building a school there with teacher housing on top, and then we have a 465 unit building that is very low income, and workforce house students, and everybody can walk not only to the metro rail station, but to the grocery store and the pharmacy. And so that's, how do you, as a government, sit on 2 acres of land doing nothing
Mm-hmm.
when you could provide housing for 450, plus families? And then I've already completed on the one lot, it's an adjacent lot. We have another 200 units for older folks, very low income older folks. So this is what the county's land is. It's not the county's land, it's the people's land, right? It's your land, it's my
Put it to
land.
use.
We need to really activate that very substantially to make sure that people have homes. And I'm not telling you that's not without controversy, right? Because, there are a lot of folks, particularly on US 1, as we go further south, like really far south into Cutler Bay and into Pinecrest, like that idea that there might be an apartment building next to a transit station, that's a big change for them.
Yeah.
It's not a big change for people in Brickell. They're used to it, right? So making sure, and the county's done a good job, that Nathan Cogan's an excellent person, of making sure that the height is really right by the station, and then everything has to taper down as they get to folks' homes. And I realize it's controversial, and you hear about it in the news all the time, NIMBY, YIMBY, NIMBY, yes in my backyard, no in my backyard. But the reality is we have a housing crisis. I mean, we have people living in their cars who work. They work. They have jobs. And it is on us as residents, not just as governments, to make sure we're able to house them appropriately, safely, and get them, make sure we want to be the place people want to be forever, not the place somebody tries to have a job, lives in their cars, and goes, well, I think I'll move somewhere else. That's not a long-term economic model.
But even like Vizcaya, I remember the first time I got off of that metro stop, I looked around and I'm like, wait, I'm one stop from Brickell, and there was nothing until you get to that intersection at Coral Way, which was, it's not a huge walk, but it's like a half, 0.4 mile walk to get to the businesses, et cetera. But I think there's just a huge fear that people think that if you build, an apartment building, even if it's near the metro, that you're just going to plow the entirety of the neighborhood down. But I think what you said about having it fit in with what's around there is really important, and have it sort of grade down versus just one big building and then a tiny house right next to it, or all big buildings and you just mow over all the single family homes. Like, it's like the fear, the NIMBY stuff, it arises from a kernel of truth that yes, there will be a bigger building near the metro, but then this like fear monger, so I don't know where it comes from, but that it's going to continue and not stop until we're all living in little boxes and have no backyards anymore.
Yeah,
And
they fear the slippery slope. Right?
Yes.
You allow
Well-
one in, and then that'll just then establish a precedent.
right.
But listen, some of this NIMBYism got us in real trouble with the state of Florida. The Live Local law
Yes.
that passed was essentially a state response to communities, not ours, but to communities particularly on the west coast of Florida that refused to allow workforce housing to be
Right.
built. And you know, I've talked to the folks up there. There's a lot of things in Live Local that are great. There's more money to build
Not
affordable
a lot of
housing
people
and
know
workforce.
about that. Could you just
Yes. Okay. So
describe it briefly?
so Live Local is, my mother would say, is a mixed blessing. There are good things.
It's a nice way of putting
That's
it.
what my mom used to always say. It's a mixed blessing. So there are good things about it. There are bad things about it. The good thing about it is, the state is providing more funding for affordable and workforce housing. For example, if you're constructing workforce housing, you get your construction materials are eligible for a sales tax rebate. You know, so all these kinds of things that are about decosting construction. Construction is outrageous right now, right? For a company, it's real. They can't build workforce housing because it's too expensive. Our county is fine. You're supposed to accelerate permitting of affordable housing. We've already done that. We've taken like a year off big building permitting in the county. Some of the municipalities need to catch up. But that's why that law passed. They have to now accelerate permitting. So there's lots of good stuff that will be able to help us get more workforce housing under construction, including ad valorem tax relief for builders that do that. They say, instead of renting this apartment for whatever, $3,000 a month, I'm going to rent it for $1,500 a month, and they're not going to be paying property taxes on it, which, you know, right now
It's a great incentive. Yeah.
it's a great incentive. And, you know, people say, how do you run a government that way? I'm like, well, we can't have a homeless problem like what's going on in
We're going to
California.
pay for that one way or the other.
We're going to pay for it one way or the other. So I'd rather have people housed.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of great stuff in there. But the preemption came because there were communities in Florida that literally would not allow any workforce or affordable housing to be built.
Right.
And so there were some centers that said, enough already,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to build it. So there is a provision in Live Local that says any property that's zoned commercial or industrial, right, which pretty much puts every avenue, Coral Way, up, you can build to the highest intensity within 1 mile radius.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you know, I went up to Tallahassee and I said, 1 mile is a lot, because in Brickell, I can build a 50-story building. I can build a 100-story building, right? As long as the FAA doesn't, you know, the city, and this is city of Miami zoning, right? This, for the most part, it's not county zoning, but the city of Miami zoning, you can build as high a building as you want. They have 1,000 units per acre as the maximum zoning, which far exceeds the county's, which is 500 units per acre. And you can build it anywhere. I'm like, well, that means basically on Coral Way next to the roads or whatever, you could have a ginormous building, and it does not require public hearing. I mean, they can just do it
By right. Yeah.
by right. So we have to
You're
be.
scaring a lot of people right now.
I'm scared by it.
This
I'm
is the
saying,
reality.
this is I'm scared by it. Right? I'm the one that flew up to Tallahassee to say, hey, peeps, try to, you know, can we go like a quarter mile? Or, you know, so.
But this is what happens when
This-
people try to stop any
And
development, right?
and you're
it's
a
gonna
lot.
backfire on you.
And you're a
I guess you
lot.
don't have to do it. It's one of those things, at least. You
Yeah.
can, but it doesn't mean you should.
Listen,
Well,
But then you're
But
hoping
who-
that people
but
if there's
who
a
the
profit
heck-
making
there,
the
someone's going to do
decision.
it.
and who
Yeah.
owns the land? Like, we don't know.
Right. Right.
Now, in exchange, you can build high, but 40% of the units have to be workforce.
I see.
Okay, so you know the state is saying your trade-off is you can build more intensely, but in exchange for that intensity, 40% have to be workforce price housing. So you know you can see the mixed blessing, as
Yeah.
mom would mom would say, but this can be problematic when you don't work with your local government. You say we're just not going to have any density in our community.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, people always say, well, I want single family homes. I'm like, okay, we can work with that. And then they say, but I also want a train station. I'm like,
Mhm.
well, I can get you a train station.
And they want to be able to walk to
or
the
I
grocery
can get
store.
you a
and-
single family
Together.
home. But you don't, the federal funding formula
Yeah.
won't get you a train station.
You need that
So-
density to support
so
the
you
investment.
can have one or the other. And by the way, people get to make choices, and their choices are fine, but we have to watch if we're not able to make progress on affordable housing, particularly near transit. You end up with the state putting in policies that don't allow us the ability to negotiate or the
Yeah.
ability to say, hey, what would work near this station?
Right.
Or how can we make this better? Now, if somebody owns a piece of property, they can more or less do as they wish.
Wow.
We could do it with a scalpel, or we could do it with a meat cleaver.
Yeah,
And
so- But housing's a crisis.
it is, and I have to tell you, as a parent, and I'm sure you're feeling the same way now. I don't believe my children are going to be able to live here.
Don't say that.
When they get to a certain age, because they can't afford it. And my predecessor in this role left Miami for precisely that reason. His kids
Wow.
left because they couldn't afford it, and he wanted to be near his grandchildren. So
Yeah.
it's a real issue, not just for us, but for future generations, obviously. So listen, we could go on and on and on. There are 20 subjects we didn't even get to touch on, but we are out of time. But I will allow you, if there's anything you wanted to discuss that we didn't get a chance to, now's the time.
No, we can
No,
always
that
come
we-
back on.
Yes.
Yeah, I
But,
was gonna say.
Absolutely.
but I do want people to feel hopeful around
Yeah.
transit. And I feel hopeful around transit. We are making progress in a way that I don't think we ever
Agreed. Yeah.
had before. And it takes longer than all of us want to comply with the federal laws and the state laws and get a project funded and make sure we're responsibly funding it. But I do feel as if there's momentum now in a way that we never have before.
The stars have aligned, and I'm sure you'll say it's a lot of other people and things, but really you're a big part of that, because if you weren't as supportive or as let's see, working as hard as you are towards that, we wouldn't be making the progress we are. So I want to thank you personally for that.
Same.
You've been
Thanks.
fantastic.
And it's fun.
It is fun, right? And it's important work. Mary, any last thoughts?
Just thank you for having me. I'm happy to help in the little way that I do.
Thank you. So, folks, that's all the time we have here on Mobility Matters. As a reminder, you can catch us here every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. I am your host again, Javier Betancourt, and want to thank my guests for being on, and I want to thank you all for watching. Till next time.